You seen AI limit? I did. I saw the review of the game. Steam, it got 9 out of 10. IGN, it got a 5 out of 10.
Any Souls-like fan, I'm quite accustomed to the process of dying over and over again until I've mastered a tough section.
Yeah.
But playing through AI Limit was the first time I felt that sense of learned repetition before I'd even died at all. That's because, aside from its anime-inspired art style and a few minor abilities you unlock throughout the story, this by-the-numbers adventure is without question the most milquetoast and unimaginative game I've played in the genre. It pit me against boring and meager enemies, laughably wimpy bosses I was largely able to stomp dead without issue, and a story with almost as little to say as its dull protagonist. In fairness, there's not much especially awful about what AI Limit is doing.
I'm gonna be honest, like, I've played this. I think he's right. I do. Like, I think this game is good. I think it's a good game, but it's not anything, like, super special. It doesn't, like, it's just a good game, right? It's a good game. Like, a 5? Would I say it's a 5? I would say that a good game that plays well, like, I would say it's like a 6. I'd probably give it like a 6 or a 7. I'd say Kazan is like an 8.5, right? Like, Kazan's at 8 to an 8.5.
Apart from its regular crashes and bugs that send you falling through the floor, but there's almost nothing worthy of praise across this forgettable journey either.
Yeah, sure. I know that, like, a lot of the people that watched, like, me play it, like, this game really wasn't popular from my audience. Like, my viewers didn't really like this game very much.
AI Limit is set in a vague sci-fi universe where society has collapsed due to mysterious circumstances.
Yeah, I played Code Vein, by the way. I think that this game is, like, if... The reality is that I think that you've had a few Souls-likes that have come out, and they've raised the bar so much... Now, like, you really have a high-quality Souls-like culture, and, like, you have people that are, like, really excited about these games, and they're actually good. Because for a long time, the Souls-like games were just simply not good. I think that the first one that came out that was really, like, just bona fide, seriously acknowledged as actually a very good, high-quality game was Lies of P. But you're also having games like Kazan come out, and I think there's a few others I just can't think of right off the top of my head right now. Neo, like, well, Sekiro is this, I mean, that's a Souls game, right? Lords of the Fallen, like, wasn't really well received. And so, maybe Neo 1 was the first one. Yeah, for me, it was Lies of P. And so, like, I feel like now, like, the bar for Souls-like games has been raised. It's not like it was in, like, 2018.
Bizarre black mud that is both toxic to all life and a delicious meal you eat to regain health.
For sure.
I eat a little when I'm starving, and it hasn't caused big problems so far.
As an android called a Blader, you were created for the sole purpose of restoring the world back to balance, which you do by killing almost everything you see. You'll unquestioningly run around the ruins of a civilization that apparently used a book of genre tropes as a blueprint, complete with a sewer that serves as the tutorial, and a poison swamp level that's mandatorily included per the Miyazaki Accords of 2011.
That's right.
A legally binding statute that's so real you don't need to bother Googling it.
That's right.
The robotic nature of your Blader also provides a convenient excuse for them to never exhibit even mild character traits as they speak in a monotone voice.
Very positive on Steam. Yeah, I think the game's good. I mean, like, if you like Souls-like games, I would recommend this game. It's a good game.
Throughout the 30-hour adventure,
strange crystallized substances?
Having a hazy setting and a forgettable protagonist isn't exactly unique to this type of game, but if the non-fantasy setting had you hoping this might be one of the ways in which AI Limit breaks the mold, nah. Actual action is largely an impression of better Souls-likes. You'll split your time between exploring dark and dangerous places, fending off these smaller enemies as you work your way to the next bonfire-like checkpoint, and confronting big menacing bosses with long health bars and deadly attacks. But that familiar structure underwhelms almost immediately here, thanks to a lack of enemy variety, samey and empty levels, and combat that's overly simplistic and unchallenging.
I don't see how, like, this is one thing that I would criticize IGN with, is, like, how is it that that's true with this game, but not Assassin's Creed Shadows? Because like, I feel like this game has more dynamic combat than Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is like really like pretty low, but I don't know. They gave Shadows a 9. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me.
You'll swing melee weapons several times larger than your body, loose spells that shoot fire, lightning, and more at your opponents, and of course, dodge roll and parry to keep yourself alive. But while there's not much unique to be found in AI Limit's combat, the few new things it tries are mostly good ideas that make me wish it took more risks. The biggest of these mechanics is the sync rate bar, which fills up as you do damage and is drained when you use spells or get hurt. The higher your sync rate, the more damage you'll do. But if you take too many hits or use too many spells, you'll find yourself in a weakened state, unable to use many of your abilities until you land some blows. That rewards cautious play and allows you to cut through boss fights more quickly if you manage to avoid damage while you press the attack.
Yeah, I think it was a good system too.
Determine how often you can use your spells by how well you play, instead of being limited by a mana meter or something like that.
I think that mana and that kind of stuff isn't as interesting as having a resource that you generate through combat and gameplay.
Even ditches the stamina bar entirely, a genre staple I largely find annoying, letting you attack without fear of running out of steam so long as you're paying attention to your sync rate.
This guy's pretty good.
There's also a pretty neat system where you unlock 4 special powers that you can freely swap between in the middle of combat, like this one that turns your arm into a shield, or this ability that lets you make short, quick dashes from place to place. Unfortunately, the first of these abilities allows you to parry enemy attacks, and there's almost no reason to switch to any of the other powers once you have it, since almost everything can be pretty reliably parried doing this to the enemy. So while toggling between these to do some interesting stuff in the middle of combat is a great concept, fights rarely play out that way. You'll mostly encounter slightly different versions of aliens that look like scrapped monster ideas from Stranger Things, and these generic robots with identical attack patterns, all of which are easily avoided.
I don't think that's fair to say. This is the tutorial boss. Yeah, it's literally like Asylum Demon or something.
Plus, they almost always come at you one at a time. Boss fights are largely straightforward too, with extremely telegraphed moves that can, once again, be easily parried, stopping those big bads in their tracks as they forget what they were doing for several seconds.
I think that like giving monsters and giving bosses well telegraphed attacks is not a bad thing. Like I don't agree with this logic, is that like, and this is a big issue that I think Souls-like runs into. Or like Souls-likes create difficulty in ways that is like very, very high friction. Like, for example, like in Kazan, the bosses have just like an insane amount of health, and they also have a lot of delay attacks. I think that delay attacks are cheap, and I think that they reward people for just kind of practicing a boss and not being able to like intuitively play the game and predict it. And so the big issue really with a lot of these games is that they keep trying to be harder and harder, but the ways that they try to achieve that difficulty, I don't feel like are particularly rewarding or fun to play. It's just frustrating. I don't think this, like, these games don't always have to be like Wukong is a great example of this, right? Like, Black Myth Wukong is not a really, really hard game, but at the same time, it feels good to play, and it's a great game. And I think that there needs to be more of a focus on like the experience the player has and the enjoyment that the player has, more so than just making the bosses really hard through artificial means. Like you can barely see the boss, or he has attack patterns that are hard to read. Like I feel like that's like a really, really like fucking lame way of difficulty. Personally, that's what I would say.
I mean, seriously, just look at this guy. Bosses also only very rarely have interesting designs, like this guy, who's just a flying version of the same Stranger Thing monsters you've already been fighting. Many more are disappointingly recycled, either by almost immediately being reintroduced as common foot soldiers, or when they're just straight up reused in another boss fight later on. It's unfortunate because there are times where AI limit clearly shows promise, like later in the story when the generic slow-moving bosses very occasionally make way for engaging battles against fellow bladers.
Yeah, I remember.
Their movesets are more interesting and challenging, and they have their own sync rate bars that must be depleted through attacks and parries in order to reduce the amount of damage they do and open them up to devastating finishing moves. There's also one or two encounters where AI limit tries new stuff, like a fight against a giant robot that sits at the end of the room trying to blast you with deadly lasers, and the only way to defeat it is by destroying the electrical equipment powering it as you cut through its minions. But these fights are few and far between, leaving you to slap around the slow-moving and much less interesting enemies that make up the bulk of the boss fights most of the time. Another thing that holds AI limit back pretty significantly is how buggy it is. I had at least a dozen crashes, got stuck in the environment in ways that caused me to twitch bizarrely, fell right through the floor during boss fights, and once even continuously respawned over and over again at a save point that threw me through the map until I went to the PlayStation dashboard and closed the app.
Yeah, console issues.
Some of these crashes happened when I was quite deep into exploring an area and far away from a checkpoint, forcing me to start over again through no fault of my own and lose materials in the process.
Yeah, I think probably this guy's technical difficulties did really shade his review, and I think that makes sense. Like, if you're playing a game and it's, like, full of tech problems, like, you're probably going to have a negative impression of the game. Like, I would say, like, I mean, if you liked Code Vein, you should play this game. For sure.
Run through the entire area spotting enemies by their floating weapons. That's not exactly the kind of difficulty I was hoping for, but honestly, even that wasn't challenging. AI Limit is a Souls-like without any soul, providing 30 mediocre hours of dodge rolling and sword swinging that's good for little more than filling time. I sliced my way through repetitive goons in unremarkable locations, killed some pushover bosses who were dead before I thought to learn their names, and spent more time recovering from game crashes than learning anything noteworthy about the bland sci-fi setting or the characters within it. The stylish art style, smart sync rate system, and swappable abilities are interesting tweaks to the blueprint, but are ultimately too minor to leave much of an impression. If you're really hurting for more opportunities to scratch that Souls-like itch, you could probably do worse than AI Limit, but you could also easily do a whole lot better. For more, check out our reviews of Assassin's Creed Shadows and Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
Yeah, I think that a lot of this feedback is pretty fair, but I think also, like, I'd be really curious to see, like, the way that people play this game that aren't, like, veterans of Souls-like games, because this is a big issue that I think a lot of these games have, is that, again, they're designed for people that have beaten the Elden Ring DLC. And, like, I think Lies of P was kind of like this. I mean, even though, obviously, I know chronologically it doesn't make sense. But, like, I'm saying, like, it's really, really hard. And I think Kazan is like this, too. And so, like, I don't think it's really a great thing to go and just make the game harder and harder and harder. And just, that makes the game better. I think there's a lot of games that are, like, really challenging, but they don't necessarily make the experience any better. I would say this game is between, like, I'd say it's probably a 6 or so, but from the demo that I played, but I didn't go back and play the full game. I don't think this game is like an 8 or anything like that, but I think if you like Souls-like games and you like this anime style, like, you know, Wuthering Waves or whatever, then, or especially Code Vein, like, you're really going to like this game. It's a 7.5 to me. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, like, as somebody, I played a lot of Souls games, and so, like, I'm kind of, like, you know, I have a lot of opinions about it. But, yeah, that's it. 5 is with no payoff, 6.5 full gameplay and a sponsor. Yeah, right. And I beat Elden Ring and Sekiro, and I still have a hard time in Lies of P. Yeah, but the reason why is, like, it's because of the attack patterns and the way that they're telegraphed. And I think that that's, like, a really, like, a poor way of creating difficulty, right? And you can stagger a lot of bosses in this game, like in DS3, for example. Yeah, I know. And that's another thing, is that I feel like, is this game really that much harder than, like, is it easier than Dark Souls 1 or 3? Like, I would say, like, I mean, outside of DLC, it's probably not. It's probably harder than those games. Because, like, I don't think people realize how easy those games were. Like, a lot of the bosses, like, if you look at the damage that they take, like, you do the exact same thing to Pontiff. You can do the same thing to Gundyr. You can do this with so many other bosses. So, it's not like it's really any different. Let me read a few comments. 5 out of 10 from IGN. Finally, a game worth playing. After seeing Veilguard make a 9. Well, what I find to be like really weird about this is that it's almost like there's a double standard with combat, where like combat in games like Assassin's Creed Shadows or Veilguard is like seen as an afterthought and not like a core foundation. But combat in this game is considered the main defining factor. And I don't really understand. Like, I think this game has better combat than Assassin's Creed Shadows. I do, because I think Assassin's Creed Shadows is like really not a great combat game. It's just not. And it does by far. Yeah, that's just my opinion. And like, why is combat in this game not really? Because like, I mean, you're an assassin, right? I mean, is more story. Yeah, well, there's more elements of it. Lost credibility the moment he says to find stamina bar annoying in Souls games. I agree with that. I think the stamina bar is annoying a lot in Souls games. I do. I think that's true. Like, I mean, like, Sekiro didn't really have a stamina bar. Like, it did and it didn't, right? At least I don't remember it having a stamina bar. It has, like, a parry and, like, a stagger bar, but that's it. Played the demo, was actually pretty good. Could use some improvements, so good overall. Yeah. I'm not paying $30 for AI limit, especially for a Steam sale for Sekiro and Elden Ring. Yeah, but I think that, like, a lot of the people that are playing AI limit, like, I bought the game already. Like, I'm going to eventually play it. It's just that I haven't yet, that's all. Like, so, like, towards, like, the middle end of April, I'm going to have to be gone for about a week, because I have to do some family stuff. But besides that, I think that I'll probably come back. When I come back, I'll probably do, and not a bad thing. Nothing's bad. Everything's fine. But just, you know, that's just what's going on.